Drum roll, please. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 420 Live. I'm your host, Jeff Kravitz, and I'm happy I'm here. I'm glad you're there. I hope you all survived the weekend. We all had a beautiful weekend here in Los Angeles. The weather was amazing. The politics were off the television. The news was far away. We just lived in the moment, enjoyed ourselves, and I think that's the way we're going to get through this whole pandemic. As you know, I've been coming to you at 420 daily, Monday to Friday, to distract you from the world at large and all the bad, evil news out there with some people I've met over the years and people I've met just recently. And today's guest, Michael DeBar, has a brand new movie out called Who Do You Want Me to Be? I watched it last night and it was fantastic. I mean, he's a human Swiss Army knife, this guy. And I really look forward to getting into it with him shortly. Give us a little time to warm up here and talk to you all. You know, it's been an interesting challenge to stay sane in these days. And I think the best thing for all of us to do is kind of ignore what's going on out there. But you can't really shut your eyes to the travesty, what's going on. And now we have to be more diligent than ever. You see what's happening in Portland and you see what's happening with their trying to Trump, or excuse me, I don't want to say his name, Rump, the other day. I'm not going to listen to the election results. Well, the landslide we got planned for you, Mr. Rump, is going to definitely take care of your landslide results. So we will make sure we make room in our beautiful country for a little sanity. I think it's the one thing we've been missing all these years, or the past, it feels like years. The past 4 months, it's really been something else. I mean, the daily survival and just trying to make heads or tails of this and how bad it is and the charts going up and down and you don't know who to believe. But I will tell you one thing, it's looking good there on the East Coast. So congratulations to everybody in New Jersey and New York. And I feel bad for all my fellow Californians right now because we are going to feel the end of the pandemic. I made the ballsy move to go to the East Coast to visit mom and the family tomorrow. So I won't be coming to you live tomorrow. We'll be taking a day off to travel and to get to the East Coast. But I plan on doing the show from Jersey and, you know, maybe even going up to New York and visiting a couple of our friends if, you know, once I get past the quarantine, the 2-week quarantine. So I'm getting ready. It's very interesting. I don't know. I really haven't been looking forward or planning for travel for so long that it's like something completely foreign. I was getting on planes at the drop of a hat to go shoot whatever. And now I'm kind of stuck here trying to figure out what the next move is. And one thing I had to slowly realization is I'm going to go to wherever the work is when it comes back. So if the work's in New York City, if the work's wherever it is and wherever I'm allowed to travel, I'm going to go shoot wherever it is. I'll get on a plane and go back. So I've been collecting my masks and getting ready and packing my bags and all my bulletproof coffee and, you know, everything I need to make it for a week on the East Coast. No, Johnny Ray, that does not mean that Bon Jovi's coming on the show. Okay. Just because I'm going to Jersey, it's not a natural reaction. One doesn't naturally lead to the other. But anyway, enough about me and enough about this. Let's get into our distraction today. You know, there's certain people you run into out here in Hollywood. They're just kind of these mystery men. And Michael DeBar was always out there on the other side of my camera and he would show up at different events. I have a couple photos we're going to go through in a little bit. But, you know, I follow him on Twitter and we've been kibitzing a little bit there. And he had this new doc come out and it's really interesting. I mean, he's had a life that a lot of people would be incredibly jealous of. Let's bring him in so you can all meet him for yourself. Hello, Michael. How are you?
I'm on top of the world, dear fellow.
You look it.
I can't help it. As I said, it's genetic. I take no personal responsibility. No, you know, I'm as happy as a man can be, as anybody would be. You know, this movie, the documentary, you guys, you got to see it on Amazon Prime or one of those streaming platforms. It's so fun. And it took years to make. And
yeah, when the first thing I saw about it on IMDb said it was actually 2014 was the original date. So it had an earlier date. And then by the time they got it finished, is that what happened?
Well, my life changes every 5 minutes. In fact, you know, I don't know if I could be here for more than 5 minutes. I mean, so many things have happened to me so quick, you know, over the course of my life. And When I joined Little Steven's Underground Garage, that was a major change, and I had a lot to do there. And the movie was unfinished. So we had to wait a while for people to be available again, and that took some time. But it's out now, and it's fantastic, And Stevie Van Zandt hired me to do Little Steven's Underground Garage, which is such a blessing, Jeff, to be able to play music for people 3 hours a day on Sirius XM, which I've been doing for 7 years, almost.
Well, what's it like not having the camera in front of you?
Well, there's a camera in front of me right now, dear.
No, but I meant when you're doing the Underground Garage, it's a completely different way than you're used to working, right? Because usually you have the camera.
God, come on. What are you talking about? It's the great equalizer. I just like to express myself. I mean, it's simple as that. No matter what that is. I've been making movies since I was 8, so I'm 72. So perhaps going into broadcasting was, a real something that I'd never done before. And it is the great equalizer. It is humbling. You don't need a mask. You don't need lighting. You don't wear makeup. Actually, I do wear makeup on the radio. I'm the only DJ to wear makeup on the radio. I just want you to know that, you guys, just so fill you in. But I've done, I've done so many. I've done a lot of voice animation for Warner Brothers, and it's. I am no stranger to a mic. And
but also with this one, you are putting the words in your own mouth, where usually someone else is writing copy for you to read. So you have to come up with your own thoughts and opinions on this music that you've been so close to all these years. And I know you got lots of opinions that the words flow freely, but is that kind of different, that you're a thinking being in that position now?
Well, I'm violently against thinking. I think thinking is the stupidest fucking thing anybody could ever do. I think being is good. In terms of my own words, yes, that's very, very clever of you to suss that out. It is me, and being me is not as easy as you'd think, and I'm talking about you too. It's hard to find a self that's true and honest.
Well, especially with your movie called Who Do You Want Me to Be, where you've been this malleable character for the past 70 years that's kind of fit in where everybody kind of wanted you to fit in. Michael, can you do this? Yes, I can.
And I can.
And you did.
So I do. It's not complicated. I don't have to think about it too much. Just got to do it. I just worked hard all my life. The radio thing is fantastic because what I'm doing is I'm giving you other people's music. It's not mine. I'm not playing a character. I'm not Murdoch. I'm not shooting people on telly or all of the stuff that I've done over the years. It's playing Sam Cooke, playing whatever acts that Otis, the British Invasion. We have a fantastic playlist of rock and soul music, and I can give that and be exuberant about that music. And my exuberance is catching, then they're going to enjoy it more. If I'm digging it, then they're going to dig it.
Well, and also you were in the trenches. You were living this life with these people as it happened. So you bring a lot of personal experience. I mean, the one thing, your access to those that were huge movers and shakers in our life is absolutely astounding. I mean, your relationship with Jimmy Page was probably the envy of every rock fan in the world. Who wouldn't want to have Jimmy Page go, let's go on a 3-day bender?
I probably Roger Stone.
He wouldn't do it.
No, maybe. I don't know if you've seen that video of Roger fucking Stone going bonkers at a deposition. Have you seen that? These are the people that are running the country. No, Jimmy, fantastic. He's just a guy. He's a great guitar player, phenomenal producer, made the best rock and roll record ever in '68, and I happen to know him. And Miss Pamela, my ex-wife, was very friendly with and had a great romance with Jimmy, and I did after that, and have a romantic relationship with Jimmy Page. I'm kidding. And, it just goes on and on and on, I mean, what is fantastic about people that are talented and, all those disaffected kids in the parking lots of America that worship Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was not a band. Led Zeppelin was a cult, So after a while, when you're a member of Led Zeppelin, these things get to you and it changes you.
Well, it was a very short span, right? Zeppelin was only 7 years, I think, something like that.
As were the Beatles.
But what
7
a
years.
huge amount of creativity and what a huge thing. I mean, I never went to a Zeppelin show. What was it like at a Zeppelin show in the 70s? Because now we're used to all this amazing sound and these amazing lights. And I think when we look back and we try to romanticize about old shows, those that haven't been there, we look at back with the technology that we see shows with now. What was the technology back there in 72 when you saw Led Zeppelin at the Garden or at the Forum?
A Marshall stack and a drum set.
That's it.
Yeah,
But,
that's it.
and the sound bouncing around the room.
Well, listen, Jeff, no fireworks, no dancers, no screens. Jimmy Page, Les Paul, Marshall amp, Bonzo, John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards, and the Viking wailing these incredible incantations into the parking lots of America. You don't need all of that shit. Did Elvis have that?
No, and neither did the Beatles when they first came.
Did Otis Redding have that? When all of that music, that power trio stuff, it was so shocking. Nobody had heard things that powerful before in a big arena, and so it was staggeringly simple. Everything you heard was real, no tapes. Everything was magic and real. And in terms of what did I think when I saw them, I was lucky enough to see them many, many times because I went on the road with them because, we were making this record and Jimmy couldn't produce at that time because he was on the road. So I went on the road with them. So when they did 7 nights at the Forum in LA, and I was there every night and nobody slept for the entire week.
The whole week.
Yeah. I might have had a nap for 10 minutes on the Wednesday of the week. I can't recall.
Was it 7 nights straight? Was it
straight? Nothing about that band was straight. It's all crooked and bent and broken.
What I meant was consecutively. Did they take a night off, or was night after night?
No fucking night. So if this is Zeppelin, this is a mighty warlords, coming to conquer Los Angeles and show them how it's done there. And it was an amazing experience. Jimmy was so exhausted by 3 dates that they would literally carry him on, and then for 3.5 hours he would kill. And then they would carry him off. It's almost like that music was the lifeblood of these warriors, and they would do it to excess, everything to excess, which is what I loved about rock and roll at that time. I've later learned that it can be very dangerous.
Could you tell that it wasn't going to that it was a lightning in a bottle, and it was going to be hard?
Yes, you could, because the vibe between them was, very early on, shall we say, it was disorienting for them all to be able to deal with each other when they were literally Mount Rushmore. It was very hard.
Yeah,
they were very, very hard to deal with that kind of fame.
That fast and slamming down and coming out. Well, Jimmy had a bunch of other bands that were successful before that. The Yardbirds. They had a level.
Oh, please. What they're talking about, a club in London. You know what I mean? I mean, they play in these little blues clubs. That's not it. When you're at the Forum for 7 nights, I repeat, 7 nights, and people are clamoring just to touch you, like you are, all these years later. You, Jeff Kravitz, want to know what Jimmy Page was like.
Well, I think they're one of the most mystical bands out there. They're the ones with the biggest mystique ever with Zeppelin. And, all of us fans would love some more Zeppelin, and we know we're not going to get it.
Of course not. That's like asking Mr. Rogers to come back to life.
Well, they did it in 2007 for Amit. Did you go to that show?
Of course. Yeah, and it was absolutely unbelievable. They were as good as they ever were. And that wasn't the glue that they needed to stick together. Right, Robert has a voice in art. Robert Plant sings what he wants to sing. Right now, it's very much Americana and Eastern music. And he's interested in many things. How can you top being Robert Plant holding the dove? How could you ever do that again? What would you hold? A squirrel? I mean. You're a fucking poodle. I mean, what are you going to do after that? Right? I mean, so, let's move on. Let's do something else. Let's try different things. They're worth billions of dollars. Let's go off and do what I want to do. And Jimmy, very, I think, cleverly decided to recreate the music, remastering and reconfiguring Led Zeppelin's catalog, and I think that was terrific. And the books that he's had made about Zeppelin, his legacy, I think, was actually being that guy, with the whole thing, and it's beautiful. And God bless him. John Paul Jones, sweetest guy in the world, Bonzo. I loved him, except when he drank, and when he drank, he would eat waitresses.
Just spit out the bones.
Oh no, he loved bones. Bonzo. I'm sorry, Bonzo.
Bonzo. So that was when you were in Silverhead. Was that, and Zeppelin? I saw in the documentary that one day Bonzo and Plant came to see you guys. Was that before Zeppelin existed, or?
Oh no, no, because we were playing a club in Birmingham where Robert and Bonzo were from, and what happened was we played this club, Silverhead, and we were like 20 years old, whatever it was, and the club was tiny. There was like 20 people there, but 4 of them were Led Zeppelin. Because they'd heard about us, and a guy called BP Fallon was a good friend of Jimmy's, and he said, "Come and see, you've got to see this band." And we spent the next 3 days at Bonzo's farm, which was just outside, the little club we were playing, just about 5 miles away. And we spent 3 days and nights there, man. And that's how we sort of fell in love, was there. And it was just, they wrote Jamaica during those 3 days.
So you had seen Zeppelin before that? Before that point, or not yet?
No. I didn't. I hadn't seen anybody. I was doing it myself. I was in that nude musical in London, and then I got this band. Andrew Lloyd Webber put this band around me, and I went out on the road. And we were just on the road. I was only 20.
And you were glamming it up like you had been doing it, like it was something that you knew was going to head in that direction, and it was kind of like the very beginning of that whole glam scene.
Well, me and my first wife used to wear makeup. We from 1966. And we would look exactly the same. We had the same hair and the same makeup and the same clothes. She would make the clothes. And we would wander around London after To Sir With Love was so popular. We'd walk around London in leopard skin and matching, eyeliner. And it was just a silhouette of art, really, exemplifying the whole notion of the new experience of sexuality and rock and roll and blues music in London at that time, where the beauty and the aristocracy were rock and roll stars. Working class rock and roll stars had now taken the royalty, the real royals, Prince Charles trying to get a table in a fancy restaurant. Mick would get it way before Prince Charles, because the rock thing was everything, man, culturally, everywhere in the newspapers, and the Carnaby Street, Union Jack, British Invasion. And it was amazing. And so I was very into makeup, and because I did mime and I was in drama school, and it was all very arty. And then it occurred to me, or it actually occurred to Andrew Lloyd Webber that I should be in a band, because I played this androgynous rock star in the West End of London in this musical. And he said, Michael, I really feel that you should go out there and you should rock. And I said, okay. So he said, do you have any songs? Do you have any tunes you can play me? I said, yeah, got loads of them. Went home that night, didn't have anything. Went home, grabbed my guitar, and I wrote this song called Will You Finance My Rock and Roll Band? And I played it to him the next day, and he did.
So Andrew Lloyd Webber financed Silverhead.
He put us together with Deep Purple, and by osmosis, Deep Purple, because Ian Gillan was singing the demos for Jesus Christ Superstar, and they had me sing the demos of Jesus Christ Superstar. So Andrew knew Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, who had a label called Purple Records, and that's how I got on. And that was my first, have a go at rock and roll.
Well, you were the opening bands, your list of opening bands, people that you opened for was absolutely astounding. You roll it and it just keeps on going and going. Do you have any that stand out that were just like, oh boy?
I couldn't give a shit about who we were opening. I was way too coked up to worry about anybody else. I never wanted to meet the bass player in Uriah Heep, put it that way. God bless them, I'm sure they're great guys. I mean, I had other things to do, like have sex in the dressing room or whatever. I'm not going to stick around and go, oh, they're really good. That's not my way. We go and do our thing, wreck the joint, have Budweiser cans thrown at us because we look like, Julie Christie. And fuck off to the clubs.
Yeah, I love the story about the Duran Duran, where the only way to get the crowd to cheer was to yell Simon on after every song.
Yeah, that was great. That was so funny. And we did it with Kiss too. I mean, and Gene laughs about it to this day because I remember we played The Garden with Kiss and Detective, and we opened for Kiss on several tours. He's had me, do a lot. Gene and Paul, great guys. So every song, I mean, there's 20,000 kids dressed and in the makeup of Gene and Paul. There's no detective makeup in that audience, Jeff. Like, what are we going to do? So the song would end and I would go, Gene Simmons, and they, and it would sound to the band, Gene and Paul and the guys, it would sound like we were going down like the Stones, And I would do that with all these bands. And John and Andy Taylor from the Power Station, that when we supported Duran, me and Jonesy and Clem Burke were in a band called Checkered Past. It was great rocking band. I mean, the record was not as great as us live at all, but it was great live. But we did the same thing. Simon Le Bon, yeah, same thing. And they would come up, and that's how I got the gig with the Power Station.
Unbelievable. The whole movie, I want to read the one-liner is: the son of a junkie aristocrat and a schizophrenic showgirl becomes a master of reinvention on a 50+ year journey through rock and roll, TV, and movies.
That's about the size of it. My father was, very wealthy and spent it all and then went to jail for embezzlement. And my mother, God bless her, was 17 when she had me, and she was a schizophrenic and great singer, though. She turned me on to Billie Holiday. That I do remember. But I never knew them. I never knew either of them. I was, the son of this aristocrat. My fees for my education, which at these fancy boarding schools, was put down when I was 1 year old. So they were both in institutions by the time that I went to school when I was 8. And I stayed in those schools. I never came home.
You were just in the boarding schools constantly. That's where you lived.
There was no vacation for me. Everybody else would go. I would stay in these Gothic castles. So you can imagine it's a funky life. What happened to me was I went to that library, and I read everything. I read everything I could get my hands on. Erudition and literature and poetry and art is in books. I read a lot, and I highly suggest it during this dreadful virus and also the world that we're living in. Read. It's the best thing you can do in these times. Well, what am I going to do? What should we do today? Read.
What do you think's the book you read the most over and over again?
The works of Oscar Wilde and Lord Byron's poetry. Aeschylus I like very much.
And did that resonate with you just from going to the library, or was that stuff you were taught in school?
It just came to me. There was one teacher that I really respected, teach history, and actually he was a real metaphysician, and he turned me on to Krishnamurti, the great philosopher. And I was reading Krishnamurti when I was 10 years old, and that led me to believing in existential life, which is living in the moment. They say, be here now. I've said it 1,000 times on the radio, but it's true. I try and live with Jeff right now here. That's it. There's nothing, I'm not going to New York tomorrow. I'm doing a radio program, I think. If I wake up, I'll do I can't think about what's going to happen. And that's
something that's been before this. Was that your life like that? Or was that just now in pandemic mode?
No. Just since I was 8 years old, I've been living a life of isolation. I didn't have parents.
Right.
At 16, I go to London. Within 3 weeks, I'm in To Sell With Love with Sidney Poitier, and we're huge stars. I have never had parental, advice, as you can probably tell.
But you had a hell of a lot of gumption, and you had a lot of opportunity come your way, which does, and very unique opportunity that's not available to a lot of people.
I think the energy, in Anita Pallenberg's book, there's a wonderful new book written about Anita Pallenberg, who was the muse to the Rolling Stones, perhaps you know
yes,
about.
sure.
And she was asked, what is her major trait? And she said, I have survived on charm. Right?
Yes.
So I send off an energy that goes, well, he's pretty interesting. Let's get him to fill in the blank. And I'll fill in the fucking blank and make you money.
And you have filled in a lot of blanks. I thought one of the most unique blanks you filled in was the Power Station role, where they just called you up and said, you're going to be auditioning for some band and we can't tell you who?
Yeah, Wayne Forte, the great promoter in New York. I was in Texas with Don Johnson. We're good friends. Miss Palmer was with him too, and I met him when I came to LA in '74 and to live with Miss Pamela. And we we were doing this. He was doing this movie, The Long Hot Summer, and we were in Marshall, Texas. And I got this call, and it was Wayne Forte saying, "Listen, Michael, there's a band desperately needs a singer. A lot of fun. What are you doing this summer? Can you like it?" I said, "Who?" And they said, "I'm sorry, we can't tell you. We'll get you a limo. We'll get you first class. We'll fly to New York," which I did. I said, "Sure." Got on the plane. Obsession is #1 all over the world at the time, so I was very cocky and rich. And I get on the fucking plane. I go to New York. There's a limo waiting. I get in the limo. I go to New York, into Manhattan. There's an office. I go into the office. The door opens. There's John Taylor. There's Tony Thompson. John Taylor's dripping in sweat and very nervous. 6-month tour, Jeff, 6-month tour. And Robert did not want to do it. So they said, "Would you come down to the studio, the Power Station studio tonight?" And I said, "Of course." We go down to the studio. They take his voice off. They give me the album, which is in the, huge hit.
Yes.
I take the album. I get on the Concorde. I fly to London, no sleep. I go to a studio. I'm told to go to a studio. I go to that studio. I wait 8 fucking hours for Andy, who arrives in a billowing clouds of marijuana and 2 big bodyguards. And I sing a verse and a chorus of Get It On. I had 8 hours to set it up. And I sing and he presses a button. He says, "Let's go shopping." And I went shopping, bought, $20,000 worth of clothes, got back on the Concorde, went back to New York. Go back to the Carlisle Hotel. Don's in town. We go to dinner that night at a Chinese restaurant. As we are leaving my suite at the Carlisle Hotel, the phone rings. It's my manager, Danny Goldberg, brilliant guy.
I know Danny.
Zeppelin's right-hand man.
Great guy. And Nirvana and yours.
Yeah, I'm godfather to his children. I love him. So he calls me out and says, "You're out." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "You're out. Palmer's doing it. Sorry." I said, "Do I get to keep clothes?" And he says, "No." It's a true story. And they're in boxes in the fucking hotel. So we go to this restaurant, Chinoise in New York. You know it? Beautiful.
Yes, of course. Wolfgang Puck, right?
So there we are. Who walks in after this information? John Taylor. He sits at a table away from me. Don gets up and says, "Hang on, Mikey, I'll be right back." Gets up, goes over to John Taylor, takes him outside. They talk for 10 minutes. I'm sitting there going, "Oh, fuck. What is going on? This is very interesting." And he comes back and says, "Okay, let's finish go back to the hotel, very dejected, go to bed. 7 a.m. Phone rings. "Michael, you're back in." What had happened was it was all a ploy, I believe, to get more merchandising percentage for Robert Palmer. That's what I understand. And I think it's brilliant. I thought that was very clever.
Oh, for him to get more of the merch.
That is correct, Jeff. And that's why, I do believe it twofold. One, he wouldn't have done well with 20,000, 40, 60,000 screaming nubile topless girls. I, however,
you're shooing.
I can handle that. A platform boot in. Yeah. And, he did, because, Robert Palmer's stage thing was this.
Right.
And that's it. You can't do that in an arena with kids going, let me hear you say, yeah.
Well, he didn't really tour that much, did he, in his life?
Oh, yeah, sure he did. Yeah, he did.
I don't remember
he had the hits he toured, but not.
Yeah, he had some huge hits.
Yeah, Addicted. Listen, Robert Palmer I'd known 10 years before this. He was Marvin Gaye to me. He was fantastic. Right. He was one of the great singers of all time and songwriters. He had a band called Vinegar Joe with Elkie Brooks, a great singer. They were like Ike and Tina, but white, and who cares what fucking color anybody is. But it was an amazing band, and I loved him very much. And replacing him was a great honor. I didn't impersonate him. I couldn't. He's sort of, he's like a horse holding the reins of the horse. Me, I don't even have a fucking saddle on the horse. I'm like off, scream, wow, it's that. And that's how I sang those songs.
When you hit Live Aid, was that the largest crowd you'd ever played in front of?
It was the largest crowd anybody ever played in front of. What are you talking about? Jeff, come on. It's 2 billion people. Yes, it's a big deal.
No, in the world, but I meant live in front of you. Because you kids,
yes,
those people there.
Of course I had. I'd opened for all the biggest bands in the world.
Right.
For 5 years, 10 years. So I knew how to do it. That was half the reason they got me. The other half was I looked really good in white satin.
Hey, you didn't sweat.
Oh, yes, I did. I would sweat so bad you could see everything I've got.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember one promoter goes, "You can't expose your penis like that, Michael. You're not Jim Morrison." I said, "Fucking right, I'm not Jim Morrison." But it was very embarrassing because I would drip with sweat, and I would wear silk. Vivienne Westwood, these silk cloaks and things, and you could see through them. And like 3 shows in, the tour manager goes, "Michael, you can see your down there." Because you're getting all wet and sweaty, so you have to wear clothes that do not expose yourself. Because I could have been arrested and taken away, which would have been a great thing for the documentary. That did not happen. I got away with it. But I have so many tales of absurdity. It was just an incredible time. Those 6 months were absolutely hilarious.
Well, you're one of the first people. I mean, you went sober really early in the game as far as the grand scheme of things. When I look at your life, you've been sober longer than you were high.
Oh, yeah, much. Oh, God, I was high for 7 years and addicted for 2 or 3. And I've been sober for 39 years. I got sober in 1981, right before the cocaine fever hit.
Right.
So as a musician, I was a pariah, complete leper. But what happened was when the power station happened, I was so into people getting sober, and this is very early on in my sobriety. And Danny Goldberg created RAD, Rock Against Drugs. And we went to Washington, we got the money, and we did it on the MTV. Maybe some of you will recall that, it was such a fantastic experience. And it was very as successful as it could be. It's impossible to say to a young and, hey, man, don't do this, it'll ruin your life. You can't do that. You just have to be. They have that thing in AA about being a source of attraction rather than projecting it or telling people to do it. If you are a cool person and you're also sober, that attracts people to maybe, think about it.
Well, it was interesting. The thing that I got out of the movie was that your approach when you went into like Power Station was, these guys are young. They got a ton of money. This is the way they're going to party. And you weren't judgmental at all. And that had an effect on them.
Yeah, nothing to do with me. I just went on and had fun. I'd run with the bodyguards every morning. I'm a fitness guy. I believe in staying fit and eating right. And they could see that by the halfway through the tour, they were exhausted. They were absolutely exhausted. 6 months, doing 3 hours, 2.5 hours a night, 5 nights a week. You've got to be in good shape to do that. Even if you're 22, you've still got to be careful. They were not careful. I was careful. And yes, you're right. They observed that. And both of them are sober today.
There's unbelievable influence you've had. Do you still, in the movie, you talk about how many meetings you go to. Do you still go to meetings now?
No, because I work so hard. I also believe that my radio programs are meetings, because if I'm giving off the vibe of a clean life, then that is reaching 5 million people a day, which is what my audience is at Sirius XM, Channel 21, Little Steven's Underground Garage. And, that is my way of being of service. I don't go to meetings. Obviously, nobody goes to meetings. Zoom, perhaps, but I don't do any of that.
Right. There's a lot of Zoom meetings now. Well, it's a complete amazing influence to a lot of up and coming rockers as they're growing older. And, people can't survive on these substances for decades. It just isn't becoming.
It's becoming is a good word. They don't come anymore. They're too impotent.
They stop.
They're impotent. They're spiritually impotent and physically impotent. It takes all of your chi away, all the energy gone, because you're owned by something. And the motherfucker of heroin is that once you're owned by it, he said, brushing his nose in memory, you lose your power. And the power is love. is loving yourself and embracing other people and realizing that we're here for justice and equality and compassion and kindness and courage. That's why we're here. We're not here to shoot fucking heroin. I mean, do whatever you want. I wouldn't preach to you, but I know that my life, in 1981, I had this realization, and it was really vanity that got me sober, by the way. It wasn't some spiritual moment like, come to Jesus. No, it was like, it was vanity. I looked in the mirror. I looked like, awful. And I went to a meeting, which Danny Goldberg set up. And I never had a drink or a drug since. No rehabs. There were no rehabs then. And rock and roll was all about, the 80s.
Right. And you've never relapsed in 40 years. You've never had anything where you were, that's incredible amount of power. People have struggled all this life, but you're incredibly strong. You're independent. You've always relied on yourself. A lot of people have that family that ends up being, your family wasn't there, which creates an issue, but a lot of people have family that's a negative force consistently in their life that's constantly wearing them down, where you just had yourself to rely on, which in some way built up a suit of armor around you that you could, work out of.
No suits of armor. No, I don't believe in suits of armor. I don't believe you have to dodge the bullet. I believe you don't believe that the bullet is going to hit you. The bullet will miss you. If you put a suit of armor on, that shows fear. I am not a fearful person. I never get nervous before gigs or action in movies, and it's a very nerve-wracking business, and a lot of people drop out because they can't take the stress of it. Well, if I've got first and foremost, I like to wear tight clothing, tight black jeans to show my extraordinary ass. So in a suit of armor, they get rusty.
Gets rusty.
Yeah, so I can't do that. Suits of armor, no, I don't need protection.
Well, I found it amazing because I went through my archives to see exactly when we ran into each other. And I found it incredible that the first picture I came across was with you and one of your best friends, Gabriel Byrne. Mm. And that was at an opening of a club in the 80s in Hollywood.
Yeah, sober. He's a great man. I mean, he's, one of the great poets. He has a new book coming out, which is extraordinary. His film biography is, you know what it is? Taste. He hasn't done the Avengers, baby. He's not in there making his 20 mil playing some demon. He's never done that. Maybe he did one, I think, one of those where he played the devil. But this is an actor who's been on Broadway and done Eugene O'Neill plays, which are 4 hours long, and he's a great man. I love him, and I am, very much connected with him. He's one of the only people during the pandemic that I've been, I'll FaceTime with.
Wow. Well, what a talent and amazing. This is the God Bless Ozzy Osbourne. I think I was a documentary on the red carpet. Yeah, I mean, you're impeccable dressed. You have such great taste. I mean, you just got your shit together. You've been this way for a long time now, so you have a hell of a wardrobe.
Same shades. You know what? Sharon Arden was a dear friend of mine, and I loved her very much, and I knew her very early on because Don Arden was basically a gangster. And he worked with Peter Grant. Peter Grant was the man of Zeppelin. Peter Grant, I think, was Don Arden's driver. Rock and roll in the 60s and British gangsterism
Hold on. We're having a little feedback here, Michael. Michael, can you hear me? No, I don't think you can hear me. I've never seen this before. Michael, I'm going to have to kick you from this. Can you hang up and then call back? Can you hang up and call back? I'm losing you. Hold on. Let me kick him from the studio and see if let's see if we'll come back in because there was some kind of feedback going there. Oh, what a bummer. What an interesting guy. I mean, you know, it's so crazy. Here he is with Dave Navarro. Gangster Rock. I know, it's a cliffhanger. It's a cliffhanger. Let's see if he calls back in. Here he is with his buddy Steve Jones. Steve Jones is also on the show. He in the movie, he's one of Michael's best friends. This is at a thing. Hold on, let me see here. Michael. I think we lost him. I think we lost Mr. DeBar for the day. I'm kind of bummed. I still had a couple questions for him to ask him, but here he is with Steve Jones. Look at this crew. Matt Sorum, Jerry Cantrell, Dave Navarro. That's Billy Morrison, Chris Chaney, Donovan Leach, Steve Jones, Michael DeBar. That was kind of amazing night that night. Oh, here we go. Thank you. We had a little bit of, are you there, Michael?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. You were feeding back and I had to do something drastic, but
well, we're back again. Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I think someone said here, you were gangster rock and roll in the 60s is where you left off.
Yeah, I mean, Sharon Arden, incredible,
Yes.
what she did with Ozzy. And that's it, Ozzy was great. That photos at that evening of his documentary. And what else you got?
What else I got? I got this classic shot of you actually performing here with Dave Navarro at the Camp Freddy.
Yeah, and, it's beautiful. What a fantastic guitar player. I love Dave Navarro. Gorgeous looking, beautiful guy, sober. And that was fun. That was in Vegas. That's Matt Sorum in the background.
And another guy that is incredibly flamboyant, incredibly tuned in, just amazing performer. He's just got it. And then we got this you and your best friend here. Another one.
Oh, did you take that?
Yes.
Could you send that to me?
Yes, I'll make sure you get all these pictures at the end of the show.
Because I'll send that to Stevie right away.
Yeah, that's you and Jonesy backstage. It looks like he's got one of those antiquated phones. Trying to take a picture of you here.
Yeah,
I got a little shot, and then there's a group shot here with Matt, Jerry Cantrell, David Navarro, Billy Morrison, right? Or that's
Billy Morrison. Yeah.
Chris Chaney.
Yeah, behind him Donovan Leach, Donovan's son.
Right.
And Jonesy and me with a fucking cigarette. Yeah.
You still smoking or no? That's over.
Oh, please. No, of course not. No. It was just a prop anyway. But no, I stopped a long time ago. Cigarettes suck.
Yeah, I agree. I never liked when my mom smoked. And here's kind of
Lemmy. Yeah, it is Lemmy. And that's Annabella Lewin, isn't it?
Yes. The lady on the lady.
Yeah, Bow Wow Wow. Yeah.
And there's Joe.
So I'm sort of a dandy James Bond there with that outfit. What the fuck is that outfit? Holy shit.
I love it. It was you're the lead guy. You got to have the flair going on.
I look like the manager. I look like Lemmy's manager.
You're gonna go do settle. You're gonna settle the band after that.
Hey man, I loved Lemmy. He was so brilliant, man. I mean, the real thing, it looked like a caricature, and it wasn't. That's exactly who he was.
Was there a guy that could do He had substance abuse problems forever.
They weren't a problem.
They weren't.
I mean, some people get away with it. He would do speed, drink the thing, and do the video games, and and then go out and kill. Literally. I mean, it's the most extraordinary man ever. Good friend with Slim Jim. Yeah,
so people have different fortitude, is what you're saying. Some people are just
they look at life differently. I mean, it's not even about fortitude. It's about how do you want to live? I would never tell anybody how to live. I just tell them how I live. They can live any way they fucking want. That's up to them. Choose something and be it by all means. But the majority of people just choose the wrong, make the wrong choices because it's such a difficult life that we all lead. Looking after our families and ourselves. It's hard out there. And it's even worse now. When I drive, when I used to drive a few months ago, I would go, we had this thing called Street Hearts, Britta and I, my wife, which is bringing, homes to those kids under those bridges in tent cities. That breaks my heart to see these youngins in tents under these fucking bridges and nobody's taking care of them. And Jeff Bezos has just bought Jamaica. I mean, give me a fucking break. It's so unequal. And so we have this thing, Street Hearts, and we try and raise, I was setting up a big gig, a Live Aid type gig for the homeless kids, but it didn't happen because of this virus.
Yeah, the virus that's kind of ruined it. So what was the perspective that the documentary gave you on your life? Because I'm sure it's really unusual to sit there and watch a 80-minute synopsis of everything you've done. I mean, you lived it, but how was it to watch it all together into one little compact hour and 20? Did it give you a different perspective on what you've been through, or what?
I think I come away with it with a feeling of I've achieved something. And that achievement is not Sting-like success. That achievement is stick-to-itiveness. I never quit. I never gave up. I would keep rocking, I was an ever-ready battery, with a touch of butter, a buttery, as it were. And I just kept doing it, and it's there in the movie. And I think that's what the inspiring part of it is. Could I play guitar like Jimmy Page? No. Could I, write songs like Bob Dylan? No. But I think it does represent the idea that believe in yourself and you'll have a wonderful life. If you love yourself, you will be loved. And that's all it's about. That kindness and courage and cool, that's all you need, and I came away with that. I thought, okay, well done, Michael. Really good. That's fantastic. That will encourage people. And that's what I felt about it. I don't really go back to So With Love and reminisce about Sidney Poitier, who, by the way, remains the most humble, noble, and brilliant man I ever met to this day. And I was only 16. And I saw a guy, a superstar, an African-American, a black guy, being the biggest movie star in the world in 1967, which is when it came out. And that resonated deeply with me. And he was amazing. And I got a good start, and tried to keep that.
And one of the unique things and one of the themes is the lifelines that popped up like perfect toast whenever you seem to be hitting the wall. It was like, oh, here's a slice. And one of those was the Murdoch role in MacGyver, where you were the Wile E. Coyote of the show.
Yeah, but cuter.
Yes. Yeah. And how was that to be on a weekly series where you were the bad guy and you got to chew up so much scenery with that character? It was just so rich.
And I didn't put on any weight, which is interesting.
No,
what happened was, it was at the end of the Power Station tour. Danny, I guess somebody called me and said, look, there's this assassin character in this series MacGyver it was ABC, that was the network, and they'd like to see you because somebody saw you at a gig with their daughter, so one of those producers. So I get in my white Rolls Royce, which I had at the time, and I drove onto the Paramount lot, and I drove past the MacGyver offices, and they were all smoking up there, panicking because that's what they do. I'm sure. And I park the car, get out of the car, I'm smoking. I'm in complete black leather. I swear to God, Jeff, I got the gig right then. I didn't have to read. I didn't have to do shit. It was so obvious. This guy was just too cool, getting out of this white roller with black leather with a cigarette. And I knew what I was doing. I mean, I knew that it would be shocking, And I went up to Vancouver. I did the gig. One scene, I'm in drag. I don't know if you remember the scene. I'm in drag, and with Richard, and it was going down. And as I was walking on the set, this is the first day or two that I'd ever played Murdoch, and I was in a dress, and some grip called out, "Hey, you shave your legs, honey?" He said to me. Yeah, I said, "Yes, motherfucker," to get in character. Yes, I did. And next time I'll use your blade, But it was a marvelous thing. And I was only there for one gig. And then people went nuts. and I was nominated and all of that. And and I did more, I did it for 5 years. And now I do the new one.
Oh, there's a new one coming out.
The reboot of MacGyver has been on for 2 years, 3 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yes, that's right. They made it again.
Jeff, you're a genius.
I don't watch.
You are a cultural genius. No. It's been on telly for like 4 years.
Yeah, I do recall it coming out. I have seen it go by when I'm channel. Now that I got the Hulu and stuff, it's not the same channel.
No, you're right. I mean, there's so many choices. It's just insane. Just choose me on Amazon Prime, you guys. That's all I'm asking.
That was an easy choice, and the movie didn't break the bank, and it was a really great watch, and you're incredibly entertaining. And I was just, when I watched it, I was like, holy crap, this guy. And my son walked in, he's like, this guy's your guest tomorrow, Dad? Holy crap, you got some game. So I have a question here from one of my good friends. He wants a little bit more on this Peter Grant driver to Zeppelin manager.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a very good question, Clayton. Thank you for asking it, because he was fucking brilliant. And what he did was change rock and roll. And the way he did that was, he loved that band so much and had so much faith, as did Ahmet, when he signed into Atlantic. And Peter Grant went from driver to hanging out with Jimmy and the Yardbirds, right? Giorgio Gomelsky. There was a whole bunch of people in London at that time. And Jimmy really trusted him, because Jimmy was very frail, brilliant, but frail. Peter was a massive wrestler. He was a wrestler.
He was a big
dude.
He
was a bodyguard. And he's somebody that made you feel very safe, which is what Jimmy needed at that time. So then Jimmy, Peter being this brilliant East End of London, that kind of intelligence that Steve Jones has, realized that Zeppelin could be the biggest band in the world, but these big bands were not making the money. They weren't making the big money until Peter Grant came along and came to America and said, fuck off to the promoters. And because the promoters would take all the money. Peter Grant, booked the gigs. They didn't need a promoter, and they didn't need an opening act. They didn't need singles. They didn't need album covers with them plastered all over it. They didn't need magazine. They didn't need Rolling Stone.
TV.
He kept them away from the norm and created a myth. Peter Grant, right, with his Cockney brilliance, his East End of London guile, realized that he had to make Zeppelin into a magical creature that people, because the music was there, but it's so often there's so many great bands that I play on my show that did not, make it. But Peter Grant created an atmosphere within which Zeppelin could flourish as a cult.
Brilliant. I mean, what a life. What a life for you. What a life for Jimmy Page. I mean, all you guys have been like under this umbrella now. And now you guys are the elders of our world. And I know you said you're 70. I saw Ringo last week celebrate his 80th birthday, and I looked at him and I said, 80 is the new 60. Is 70 the new 50?
Well, you can't think about numbers except 69.
And you hit that one already.
This morning. No, I mean, the thing is that all of that is, for me, longevity is the new black. If you look at Jagger, and you look at our culture, and you look at what's happening, Dion has a record out called Blues with Friends. That is one of the best records I've ever heard. He's 81.
Wow.
Dion. Stevie Zonnet Van Zandt, Jeff Beck, Joe Bonamassa, Billy Gibbons, you name it. And it's one of the great, and I would really recommend you guys that you get that record. If you like rock and roll, you like the blues, Dion will give it to you right there. Original songs, blues songs, done by all of these people, these wonderful people. Steve Van Zandt, my boss, incredible. And, age is what I've taken care of myself, and I will stay here till I'm 120.
I love it. All right, here we go. I got one final question for you from my friend Robin Kramer.
Okay.
What is your ideal advocate or vocation, I guess? Acting, writing, singing, raconteur, poetry, theater, art, or something else?
Thank you, thank you so much for your question. All of those are the same thing. I don't see any disparity between poetry and between radio. I'm a poet now. I just told you an hour of poetry.
It has been beautiful too.
Well, so therefore, if acting and performing as a musician, it's all rhythmic. It's all how it feels. If I'm a bad guy, then I will be still.
Whoa. Did he just freeze? Or was it me?
And if I'm in rock and roll, I won't be still. I will move and I will sing and I will do
That was incredible.
It's all up. It's great to talk to you, Jeff. You have a beautiful everything. Okay, man.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. Good luck with the movie and continued success. And we look forward for more interesting things coming out of your corner. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
God bless you, Jeff. Thanks so much. Okay, man. Will do. Bye-bye.
See ya. A beautiful show today, Michael DeBar. Thank you very much, Michael. That was great. Everybody, Amazon Prime Video, you want to see this doc because when you watch it all encompass in 80 minutes, it's absolutely amazing watch. And you've seen Michael DeBar all your life in everything you've seen on television. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. Today, let me talk about a couple things. We have our friends at Solo Pipe. Michael will not need a solo pipe. Ash's Chocolates, the 420 bar, 20% off your order, and you get the special 420 Live bar. Make sure you have to spend a minimum of $75. And, thanks, guys, for tuning in. I wanted to talk about a sponsor that we have here on 420 Live, and it's Sinlawn, who does synthetic lawns. And I have a synthetic lawn. When Tom Marshall called me to tell me about these guys, he's like trying to explain to me about what the advantage are to having synthetic lawn. You save water. It looks amazing. And I was like, Tom, I've had this. We put this in our house when we renovated the yard, so we didn't have to pay for water because we live in California. Water is a commodity, and you don't want to have to pay for it just to keep your yard green. So these folks, they sent me a little sample. You guys know how I love getting samples of grass. Well, I got some grass samples here, and you can see one's a lot taller than the other. But if you hit Sinlawn up, they will send you some, and they're having a contest through August 31st to you can have your own putting green installed in your backyard. How about that? So sign up there at Sinlawn for their contest. Tell them 420 Live sent you. Thank you, Monica and everybody. I love you guys too. I appreciate you all. And these Osiris Media, that happened on May 6th. And then I updated my LinkedIn recently, yesterday, with the news. So yes, we're part of the Osiris Media Network, the channel. And, folks, I'm excited to get on a plane. I'm not really, but I am, but I'm not. I'm still nervous, as we all should be. I don't know which way to go, but I'm going to go back to the East Coast. I'm going to see my mom and my brother and my girls and everybody else, all my friends out there from a socially safe distance on the beach. So I look forward to seeing all my folks back there. Thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow we will not be on the air. I know we had a pre-DAM show planned, but we're going to take the day off and travel. And then we'll kick it up again on Wednesday with our guest, Robert Walter from Gray Boy All-Stars. Thursday, we're going to have John Barber from the Disco Biscuits. And Friday, I believe it's Nicole Atkins. Still waiting for confirmation, but we're in talks right now. Thank you, everybody. Peace, love, and happiness. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Medicate, hydrate, fornicate. Take care of all the Kates. I know that Michael DeBar would like that, the last joke there. Here's the hug. Thank you all. I look forward to seeing you back here on Wednesday. We will see you all soon, and take care of yourselves and all that. This should be interesting. Have a great day, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Michael.